Good morning, class. Welcome to our video presentation in Module 9, Gestalt Psychology. So, my name is Redelito Menelmazo, and I will be the first reporter for our Group 8. Before we proceed to our discussion, we need you to examine the images or pictures that will be presented on the screen. So, what did you observe about the image? So, did you find the word me and you? So, there is a question, is there a possibility of you and me are together? Okay, so if you focus on the blue and the background, which is blue, you can spot the you word. So, and also you can spot the me if you focus on the red images. So, another example. Okay, for our second example is this one. Okay, so what did you observe? Okay, same example with the number one example. So you can spot the word good and also evil. So if you focus on the background, which is white, you can spot the word evil. And if you focus on the black font, so you can spot the good. So last example. So in our last example, we have this one. So we have two words here. We have the optical and we have also the illusion. So if you focus on the blue background, you can see the word optical. And if you focus on the lighter color, so you can get or you can see the word illusion. So these three examples are examples of what? These are examples of optical illusion. So same answer with our third example. So let's go now to our discussion. So we in module 9 we will focus on Gestalt psychology. Gestalt psychology was the forefront of the cognitive psychology. It served as the foundation of the cognitive perspective to learning. Gestalt psychology has influenced how we study perception and sensation. It opposed the external and mechanistic focus of behaviorism because behaviorism focused on the idea that all behaviors are learned through interaction with the environment, but Gestalt psychology focuses on the form or shape of something and suggests that the whole is greater than the sum of its part. And also, Gestalt psychology is considered the mental processes and products of perception. So when you look at the pictures or the images at the beginning, your mind followed a certain principles of perception. Gestalt psychology is concerned with such principle. Gestalt theory was the initial cognitive response to behaviorism. It emphasized the importance of sensory wholes and the dynamic nature of visual perception. The word Gestalt is used in modern German to mean the way a thing has been placed or put together. There is no exact equivalent in English. Form and shape are the usual translation. In psychology, the word is often interpreted as pattern or configuration. So according to psychologist Max Witheimer, Wolfgang Kohler, and Kurt Kofka studied perception and concluded that perceivers or learners are not passive but rather active. They suggested that learners do not just collect information as it is, but they actively process and reconstruct idea in order to understand it. This is the perceptual process. Certain factors impact in this perceptual process. Factors like past experiences, needs, attitudes, and one's present situation can affect their perception. One might have difficulty perceiving both the words you and me in the first picture at the beginning if one is trying to forget an ex-sweetheart who caused pain or simply because he was looking on the foreground, not in the background. According to the Gestalt psychologist, the way we form our perceptions are guided by certain principles or laws. These principles or laws determine what we see or make things or situations we met. So, the principles will be discussed by another reporter of our group.
Hello everyone, this is Presha GIP Franco and I'm going to be the one to report the 4 laws of Gestalt Theory. Law of proximity. Elements that are close together will be perceived as a coherent object. So that means that objects that are close to one another are being grouped together. So I have here an example of law of proximity. So in this example, you will see a bunch of circles. But because of law of proximity, our mind organizes the information, and we can see that on the right side, the circles are grouped vertically, and on the left side, the circles are grouped horizontally. Next one is the law of similarity. So elements that look similar will be perceived as a part of the same group. So in simple words, objects that are similar to one another are grouped together. So I have here an example of law of similarity. As you can see, there are a bunch of circles and triangles in this image. But because of the law of similarity, we can see that the triangles are grouped together to form another triangle in the middle. So the next one is the law of closure. So we tend to fill the gaps or close the figures we perceive. We enclose a space by completing a contour and ignoring gaps in the figure. So in this image, we see this image with missing parts. So, for example, is this one. We can see that there's lines and circles that are not complete. And in our mind, we complete the circles. We complete it as a complete circle without the gap. And also the triangle, instead of it's not connected. So in our mind, we connect it to form a complete triangle. So the last one is the law of good continuation. Individuals have the tendency to continue contours whenever the elements of the pattern establish an implied direction. People tend to draw a good continuous lines. So I have here an example of the law of good continuation. So in this example, you can see that these lines or these waves starts here and ends here. But because of the law of good continuation, we tend to perceive that this line will continue for eternity.
Good day everyone. For today's video, we will be discussing the 2 remaining laws of Gestalt principle, the law of good pregnance and the law of figure or ground, as well as I will also discuss the insight learning. The law of good pregnance, this foundation principle states that we naturally perceive things in their simplest form or organization, and somehow people break complex ambiguous images and perceptions in their simplest form, because again, we as human beings, we prepare things that are simple, ordered, and uncluttered. That's why we tend to reduce reality. For example, as you can see on the example, the object on the left side is a type of a complex image, while on the right side you can probably make out a square, a circle, and a triangle from this form, so it makes simpler than the other one. So that's how law of good pregnancy makes sense. So next, in the law of figure or ground. Law of figure or ground, your brain will distinguish between the object it considers to be in the foreground of an image, which is the figure or the focal point, and the background as the area in which the figure rests. So where things get interesting is when the foreground and background actually contains two distinct images. Even isa ra ka picture mo ginapakita but it represents or it interprets two distinct images. In general terms, your brain will interpret also that the larger area of an image is the background and the smaller area of the image is the figure. As shown in the image sa example, through you see that the lighter and darker colors can influence what is viewed in the figure and what is viewed as the background. Insight learning. Insight learning is a sudden grasping of the solution, a flash of understanding without any process of trial and error. So it was first discovered not by observing humans but by observing chimps. The idea of insight learning was first developed by Wolfgang Kohler, which he described experiments with apes where the apes could use boxes and sticks as tools to solve the problems. The important aspect of learning was not reinforcement, but the coordination of thinking to create new organization of materials.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening once again, whatever time you are watching this. My name is Irish E. Magaluna and today I am going to discuss about the Gestalt principles and the teaching to learning process. So earlier, Miss Polanco and Miss Franco already discussed the Gestalt principles itself, where it has 6 laws, which are the law of proximity, law of closure, law of similarity, law of good pregnancy, law of good continuation, and law of figure or ground. At this time, I am going to discuss about the Gestalt principles and the teaching to learning process. So in this part, there are no laws at all. However, there are psychologists who pointed out or stated their theories about the Gestalt principles or the teaching to learning process. So before I will introduce you to the psychologists who have their theories about the teaching to learning process, take note class that the 6 Gestalt principles that was mentioned earlier does not only influence perception but they also give impact on learning by the individuals. There are only 2 psychologists in this topic. So the first one is Kurt Lewin. So his theory focusing on life space which adhered to Gestalt Psychology. So Lewin said that an individual has inner and outer forces that affect his or her perceptions and also his or her learnings. Take note that all these forces, which are the inner and outer forces, interact and impact on the person's learning. You might be confused what are these inner and outer forces. So the inner forces includes his or her own motivation, attitudes, and feelings. On the other hand, the outer forces may include the attitudes and behavior of the teachers and classmates. So, sa inner forces, ato si butang sa isa ka situation or isa ka example where ang isa ka estudyante or isa ka learner magdepende ang ija learning sa ija motivation, attitudes, or feelings. So, let's just put in a situation na kintahan isa ka estudyante waya gadud sa ija mood or waya ija urge mo eskwela or nakakaton, so useless or hapon na ija pag kadto sa eskwelahan kay laong pa physically present but mentally absent. On the other hand, sa outer forces, ang estudyante sa nagdepende sa kung uno'y pakikitungo naan isa ka teacher or ija mga classmates. So, kung an ija classmates or teacher kay ganaan atmosphere, ganaan mood, di syempre ganado sab-an isa ka estudyante or isa ka learner mamati or makakatuon amo sad sa pakikutungo nan ija classmates. Okay, now let us move on to the second psychologist, which is Mario Polito. So, Polito was an Italian psychologist. He also writes about the relevance of Gestalt psychology to education. So, as part of this topic, let us also discuss what Gestalt Theory is. So, Gestalt Theory is focused on the experience of contact that occurs in the here and now. It considers with interest the life space of teachers as well as the students. It takes experience in the complexity of experience without neglecting anything but accepting and amplifying all that emerges. It stimulates learning as an experience and the experience as a source of learning. So, in this way, it appreciates the affections and meaning that we attribute to what we learn. Knowledge is conceived as a continuous organization and rearrangement of information according to needs, purposes, and meanings. It asserts that learning is not accumulation but rather a remodeling or insight. This means that the autonomy and freedom of the student is stimulated by the teachers.